Well, look at that. I love it! Give yourselves a round of applause. Well done. Love that. Oh, that's great. So I just came up from Cornwall this morning. Yeah, no, well, it started out as one of the new Teslas. But the build quality is so bad, it shook apart in the A30, and this is all I've got left. Do you like this? So this is called it's called a one wheel. And don't worry, I'll get on the stage in a minute. I won't come amongst the audience just yet and freak everyone out. It's called a one wheel, and actually, the reason I use it for events like this is it's a really good metaphor for a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about in the next sort of 45 minutes. In that it was, believe it or not, it was invented by a chap on a Thursday night. He had an idea on a Thursday night, and he went into his garage and he had a bit of a CNC machine. That microphone's going to echo, isn't it? He had a bit of a CNC machine and a 3D printer, and he had the prototype ready, up and working by the Sunday. He went to a crowdfunding platform. He had it funded to the tune of $1 million 1 week later. So that's where we are in terms of innovation. So great to see you. I was having a look at some of the exercises you've been doing. That was quite good. I was enjoying learning all about that. I don't know much about your world other than being a student for most of my life. And working for Lincoln University as a visiting lecturer, but we'll get onto that in a minute. What I want to do, though, and looking at the room, I think I'm going to get some hands up, is ask you if any of you remember this.
Oh, yes.
I love that. What a reaction that was. It was a childhood right there, wasn't it? Yeah, so this is the ZX80. So what I want to try and do in the next 44 minutes is give you something of a future-gazing toolkit, okay? I'm going to come down here because I feel like I'm far away from you, and it's all very echoey. That's better. That feels better. A future-gazing toolkit. So a set of ideas that you can use after we finish this session and into the future that will help you unlock the future and work out why everything's moving so quickly and where exactly we're going in your own lives and in your work lives and so on and so forth. So the ZX80 is a really good place to start because the first thing I want you to put in your future-gazing toolkit is an appreciation of the past, all right? I'm from Lincolnshire, I say the past, all right? Get over it. No, I don't say past. I'm not posh. So the ZX80 is really interesting because many of you, so I'm going to go to the younger section of the room. So you might think the following idea is bonkers. You might have heard that we used to load code onto audio cassettes. You might be familiar with that idea. You'd save that. Look at some of the old people go, oh. That's quite advanced compared to this computer. This computer came as a plastic bag full of components that you soldered together. That's how different it was in the first generation of home computing. So you got two versions. The 99 quid version came ready to go. The version that I got with my dad was a bag of parts and you soldered it together. Isn't that absolutely nuts? It was, of course, the invention of this man. I love the reaction. It's great. It's great. And for those of you not familiar, that's Sir Clive Sinclair, the sort of 80s answer to Elon Musk. If Elon Musk was ginger and dressed like a geography teacher. So there he is, an innovator, par excellence, an entrepreneur, and responsible for some really interesting innovations that I think defined, to a certain extent, many of our lives. So we've got a sense of the past. I'm not going to dwell too much on that. We'll keep popping back to the past because it's just amazing how the past provides us with a route map to the future, but more of that in a minute. The next element I want to put in now you see the connection. The next thing I want to put in your future-gazing toolkit is an understanding of the importance of popular culture, okay? Now, we could get into theory on this and we could get complicated, but when you think about it, it's obvious, right? The industrial designers, the technologists, the engineers that are engineering the future look to their past to try and bring to life the things that inspired them when they were younger, okay? And it's really interesting. So Johnny Ives, the British inventor of the iPod and the first-generation iPhone, those iconic devices, was obsessed with Star Trek. And when you watch Star Trek, the iPhone isn't a million miles away from the tricorder, you know, the device they use to chat to each other. So that's sort of what I'm talking about. I was myself pretty, I think, obsessed is the right phrase, with Back to the Future, to the extent when I went through a middle-age crisis. You don't look old enough, Jace. That's what you're thinking, isn't it? I didn't buy a Porsche. I bought a DeLorean. A second-hand DeLorean. I bought it from a chap in Northern Ireland. It was one of the very few DeLoreans that hadn't gone across to the US, because of course they were made in Northern Ireland and shipped over to the US. And I immediately wanted to turn the car into what we call a time machine. You'll be familiar with the time machine variant. And so all the time machines that you see, if you've ever seen them at exhibitions or around London and so on and so forth, they've all been converted, right? And I was working at the time with a bunch of apprentices. So I was a mentor for apprentices. I couldn't actually hear your introduction, so I don't know if you mentioned, but I used to do a show. I think you did mention the Gadget Show. So I did the Gadget Show, and I used to have this great opportunity. I used to say that being on telly is better than being a billionaire, because you get to do stuff that you couldn't even pay for, you know? And one of these brilliant experiences I had was I was asked to come to this company called KMF in Stoke-on-Trent, and I met 3 generations of the same family that all work in the family-owned factory. Isn't that amazing? The guy that set it up, his son, who's now an OBE and a very good friend of mine, Gareth, and his son, all working at KMF, and they're a metalworking factory, and they said, would you come along, do a speech, and inspire our apprentices? 8 years later, I'm still going there twice a year. It's amazing. But the benefit is, when I had this DeLorean, I knew exactly where to take it to get it converted into the Back to the Future car. And it was quite interesting because they used all kinds of modern manufacturing and design platforms, AutoCAD, you know, computer-aided design, 3D printing, that sort of thing. The fins on the back there, they're coolers. They cool the nuclear reactor, the famous fusion reactor, okay? And this is an interesting little oddity. They were very excited. The first thing they built was the big things on the back, the vents. And they called me up excitedly, and I went up to Stoke, and then I looked at them, and they could tell I looked a little bit disappointed. And they said, what's the matter? I said, well, they're perfect. And they went, is that bad? And I said, well, yeah, because when the original car was made in 1985, in order to join aluminium, you had to weld it. And you had, because aluminium apparently is not easy to weld, you've got this sort of fudge-like weld all over it. Like all the different angles were covered in this sort of fudge, and then it was all painted black. These, because of what we do now, we use robots. They use robots, and they fold the metal, and then they just do a couple of little joins, little invisible joins. So anyway, I made them retrospectively add loads of completely pointless fudge-like weld to make sure that the car looked perfect. There's my son as he was then, putting together the 3D printed parts of the Mr. Fusion. Okay, some Back to the Future fans in the audience, I've noticed. What's the main component that makes up the Mr. Fusion? What was the thing that they bought in the props department at Universal in 1984 when they were making the Mr. Fusion? What does it look like? Someone's going to say SodaStream. No one said SodaStream. People normally say SodaStream. It's actually a Krupp's coffee grinder from about 1975. And then that bottom base bit was made by the props department. Just a little factoid. And there's the finished product. What do you say to that? How about that? Didn't the apprentices do a good job? Isn't that an amazing thing? Normally, they've got this incredible building. It's why he's an OBE, Gareth. You should look them up, KMF. They're amazing. Stoke-on-Trent. And because they've got this building. I mean, it's the floor space of this and 3 stories. Just for the apprentices, they've got a really great program there. And I think this is a real tribute to them. It's an amazing car. Now, look, where we're headed for the remainder of my presentation, where we are collectively going in our future is absolutely mind-blowing. It's so mind-blowing that everything I'm going to tell you about for the remainder of the presentation is the truth. I'm not going to exaggerate. Okay, I'm not going to make anything up. It sounds like I'm setting you up for a joke. I'm being serious. I don't need to make stuff up, because where we're going is mind-blowing. So here we go. First statement of truth. That's not photoshopped. Okay? That's an actual photograph taken literally Less than a mile from here, Piccadilly Circus. And this was the answer to an exam question. It's the birthday party, it's the anniversary of Back to the Future. Marty McFly, what's his name? Michael J. Fox being interviewed in America on the Letterman show, whatever it was. And there's a big Nike boots thing going on in Paris. What do you do if you've got one of the cars? And this was our answer to it. I went back to The Apprentices 5 years after we made the car, and that's what they came up with. And I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to try and remind me when we get to the Q&A at the end, if we've got time for a Q&A, I want you to tell me how I did that, how we did that, okay? So don't shout out now. Quick look. I'll come back to that slide in about 25 minutes, and we'll see if you can guess. Right, okay. Now we're into the good stuff, the future-gazing stuff. So we've put an appreciation of the past in your future-gazing toolkit. We've popped an understanding of the importance of popular culture. These will become themes. We'll get back to these. I'll make sure that you're really, really clear on all this stuff. I also want you to pop exponential growth into it, okay? The concept of exponential growth, which I'm guessing with a room full of educators, you're probably closer to understanding than some of my audiences. The doubling effect, as outlined there by an example of exponential growth, Moore's law. But I agree, that graph is really boring, and that's why I recreated it as a roller coaster in Minecraft. Come on! Oh, hey, even exponential growth is exciting now, isn't it? Okay, so yeah, let's have a look at how I built this. And there is a rumor that my 14-year-old did this, but I don't know where people got that from. So this is us building the exponential roller coaster. So while we build, before we take a ride on it, I want to explain the concept of Moore's law. So Moore, one of the founders of Intel. First of all, hands up, you're an intelligent bunch. Hands up, who knows about Moore's law? If you've encountered it at all. Yeah, sort of smattering of hands go up, right? So it's the concept that in 1965, this is truly remarkable. In 1965, this man who went on to found Intel looked into the future, looked at what they were doing in their laboratories then, with the first rudimentary computers. And he predicted that every 18 months, the power of computers would double, roughly, every 18 months. Half in size, the components would half in size, half in energy consumption, and half in cost. Just think about that. Not just that incredible fact, but being so prescient that you could predict that in 2024, we'd be in that same space, that we'd be getting towards the end of the curve. We're going to ride it in a minute. But nevertheless, we'd still be on that trajectory upwards, doubling. It's doubling. It's extraordinary what happens when you double. You know this. If you know a little bit about mathematics, you know, you've got the 4-bit computer. You've got the 8-bit, 16-bit. You recognize these. 32-bit, 64. It's not long. It's about 30 plus jumps, and you're into the billions. It's extraordinary how game-changing exponential growth is. So let's ride the roller coaster. 1965, first rudimentary computers, 1-bit. Computers that aren't particularly useful, but at least they work. We're now sort of in the 70s, and this is when the home computing generation happens. People making computers in the garages, people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and so on. And now we're getting into the first proper personal computing revolution. We started with the ZX80, about 85 now, 64-bit computing, just cresting through the 80s into the 90s, and television and movies are starting to, the rudimentary steps into CGI and movies and the virtualization of stuff. Now, let's say, oh dear, my computer needs an upgrade, look. I'd say now we're in the sort of noughties, so this is the invention of the internet and the interconnected nature of distributed computing, which we're going to come back to because that's fundamental to where we are now in the age of AI. And now let's say, I think we're about 2024 now. If we look backwards, hopefully, there you go, look at that. And then you look forwards and you see it gets even steeper. You think when you look back, you're going to continue at the same rate, but you're not. It's getting steeper all the time. Just deal with one of the locals. And now change in about 2027 to 2035 is so rapid, it's almost vertical. Year on year, change happening at an explosive rate. And that's what we call an intelligence explosion. Okay? So let's put some more information into our future-gazing toolkit. Interesting. You can't talk about where we are now, where we're going, which I'm guessing almost immediately now, because we've got our future-gazing toolkit, means something, doesn't it? It means a little bit more than it would have done if I'd just started the presentation with this. The big question is what's happening to our jobs? Have you been discussing that today at all? Has it come up in conversation? Or is it like, no, don't talk about that? I'm interested. We can come back to that. It's not just us that are noticing the change that's going on. And it is a change, okay? It's not a deletion. It's an evolution. It's a sideways step. We'll come back to this. We're on it now. We won't come back to it. We'll tackle it straight on. 25% of jobs are going to be disrupted. Let me ask you something. Is disruption necessarily bad? It's not, is it? I think they carefully chose that word because has anyone done a marathon? Has anyone in the room done a marathon? A marathon or a 10K or something like that? 10K. Yeah, chap at the back there. So when you started out, I just run out and do a 10K, or was it perhaps an incremental process that you went through? Was it disruption? Was it something that caused you to, get off the couch and, sign up to doing a park run or whatever? You understand the point I'm trying to make? It doesn't matter what your particular example is. Disruption isn't necessarily bad. In fact, I would argue it's very necessary for growth. I mean, I personally have gone through some of the most important changes in my life, and my children as well, when things have got a little bit tough, and it's how we react to that change. I want to talk about some of the disruption that's been going on as a result of this exponential growth. And we're going to start with this image. This is a 3D printed material. And it's a way of me shoehorning in another element that I want you to put in your future gazing toolkit, which is an appreciation of the abstract, or I would say the future often arrives as if seen through a prism. In fact, here's a great example of it. So if I look at you, fine shirt, handsome chap, look at you there, and you not quite so handsome now.
That's the reality of it, mate.
What's your name, sir?
Rob.
I can see Rob, look, and I can see his shirt, I can see the sort of makings of the beard. We're not sure what we're doing there. Yeah, I'm with you all the way.
I wasn't going to say anything, but now you've mentioned it.
You know what I'm saying. I can see you there, Rob. So Rob's there. It just looks a bit different. Well, that's how technology arrives. Okay. There may be some examples in your own lives where you've kind of waited for something in the world of education, training, or whatever, a facility, a service, a platform, a gadget, a toy to arrive. And when it arrives, it's often wonderful and brilliant, but it's not quite what you expected. And that's a real feature of innovation. Okay. And this is a good example of it. It's a 3D printed material. Can anyone guess what material it is? Sugar. Good. Anyone else? Sand. I always get sand. Did I hear chocolate? Hands up if you said chocolate. Well done. You get a house point. Do they still do house points in school? Is that a thing? Yeah, it's chocolate. Now, here's the thing, right? If I'd come in on my hoverboard thingy and I'd started my presentation by saying the following, you'll never guess what they're going to do. They're going to be 3D printing food soon. You'd have said, get out of the room. Who is this guy? What's he on about? I'm hoping now, because we've come on a little bit of a journey, that you're going to give me the benefit of the doubt. And let me explain that when you think about it, I'm using this as an example because it's abstract and unusual. And it's a difficult sell, this one, right? Hands up if you've had or have little kids at some point in your life, right? Okay. Mealtime, chilled out, yeah? Yeah, most chilled out time of the day, isn't it, mealtime, with the toddlers. And they always eat what you give them, don't they? And when it's really important, like it has a medical role for someone in your life, not a problem. 6-year-old, definitely hands up, no problem. 4-year-old, yeah, I'll eat that because it's really important for my nutrition or whatever it be. Yeah, okay. Of course, it's completely the opposite. It's absolute chaos, right? Imagine if you then think, well, what if your job is to look after some soldiers, in Kandahar, right? Where the nutritional needs and the medical needs are very specific, and you've got 10,000 of them, right? Does it make sense that, not all the time, but does it make sense that there may well be a role for a machine that can, in inverted commas, print food, so that you can supplement that process a little bit, in the way that we do the same thing with the coffee machine outside? But does it also follow that just because the coffee machine was invented in like the 1960s, because I remember in the 70s, I was born in 69, so I remember everything being automated in the 70s, but not really working, and that actually gave rise to me yesterday in a posh coffee shop, generally served by a bloke with a beard and loads of tattoos, paying, £3.80 for a black Americano that's made with the love and care of a kind of artist, And you don't mind waiting, do you? Because that's the process, right? That's the natural ebb and flow. It's the reaction. So we don't have to worry about the automation of just about everything, but we do need to understand that it's going that way, that it's going to happen. And when it works for us, it's going to float to the top. And when it doesn't, it's going to be in the same way that there's been a return to vinyl. It's not a great mass movement, but it's a significant market worth several £100 million a year in the UK, the vinyl record market. Okay, cool. So, other things that are a little bit abstract, yeah? The way that certain technologies affect other sectors in an unexpected fashion. So, automated vehicles. When I started doing this talk, which was a little bit different a few years ago, the notion of having a car that could drive itself was absolute science fiction, right? But now, hands up, if anyone's got a car that is capable of driving itself. Lady at the back, have you got a Tesla by any chance? What have you got?
I don't think it drives itself.
But it's got intelligent assistance functionality. You can maybe park, or it'll tell you when you're coming over the lane. Yeah? Yeah. So I've got a Tesla. I haven't got it. It's my wife's car, actually. I have to say that. It just feels dishonest. Because I think I've got a... Oh, he's doing well, isn't he? He's got a Tesla. And the car has a beta software function available. You have to sign all these disclaimers, but it will fully drive itself. Fully drive itself. And it's really scary, but it does it. And I don't trust it yet, but we're getting there. And that's in 2024, and that's now, and that's me, and it's you, and it's several other people in the room, right? Well, let me ask you this. When a car can drive itself, do we need car parks anymore? Just this little idea. Do you think we do? I don't know if we do. I don't know if we do, because I'm thinking to myself, well, if you look at the... And this is only my opinion, when we can discuss this if you want. It's only because we've not got much time. I'm sort of bossing it and running along. I'd love to actually literally sit down and chat this one out. But it's a little rhetorical, but do we need the same road infrastructure in pedestrianised city centres? I would say the answer to that is definitely no. We need to adjust that process, right? And because if a car can drive itself, then it can drop you off and it can go off to a disused airfield and join all the other electric and automated cars and chat to each other like Mater and Lightning McQueen. But it can, can't it? So then what happens to the car park or the space where it was? We can greenify the city centre a bit. We still need access to the city centre to bring goods, but we can certainly make that road infrastructure less prominent. I mean, it's like we're unimportant. I mean, I lived in Richmond. We lived in London for about 15 years. I was living in Richmond, and it's like the pedestrians are an afterthought. It's like, what's the centre for? It's for the cars, isn't it, really? Because that's how it feels. So a cleaner, a quieter, cleaner, safer environment. It's a bit greenified. And then that seems, to me, to interconnect with a need for the high street to redefine itself. And that's very, very necessary. The high street is in something of a crisis. And it's down to innovations in retail. Now, I live in Cornwall, and today my daughter sent me a text on the way up. She said, your parcel's arrived. That was Amazon. I ordered it last night, 9 o'clock, and it arrived before I got here today. And someone told me that now in London, if you order certain things, you get them the same day. Is that true? I knew that was true. I was just messing with you. Isn't that bonkers? Do you think that maybe challenges the dominance of the department stores and the traditional high street? Then they're in need of something, aren't they? This is another example of it. Why bother ordering one product on an app and waiting for it to be delivered when the whole shop can come? So this is Wheelie's Moby Mart. Now, for us that live in cities and we're young and we're mobile, we can go down the high street, and we enjoy going down the high street. But my mom is 86. She doesn't get to do that. Like, certainly doesn't get to take herself to the local city. She lives 18 miles away from Lincoln, our nearest city. What if Mom could grab an app thingy, see which of the mobile mini-marts was near her village, and it would come to the town, and she could meet some of her neighbours outside and buy a new knitting pattern and try on a hat and get some groceries. Seems like the past is knocking on the future's door again. Does anyone remember? Certainly I remember in the 80s, every Thursday in Lincolnshire, where I used to live, in the same village where my mom still lives, strangely enough, Woodall Spa, beautiful place. Yeah, 18 miles away from any civilization. Yeah, the grocery van would come on a Thursday night. Do you remember? Yeah, so there you go, the past. I told you it was going to pop its head up again. Anyway, when I left the gadget show, my wife seized the opportunity to do something she'd always wanted to do. We decided to go around the world and we went for a whole year. We took the kids out of school. Sorry about that. Took the kids out of school. And we went around the year. We did 23 countries in a year. It was incredible. You know, we did Hawaii. We went to, where else did we go? Australia, New Zealand, blah, blah, blah. We went to Dubai, to the UAE. And, okay, so not much time, but we were each given the opportunity to say one place in the world that we'd like to go, and we tried our best to try and make that happen. So my son wanted to play video games in Tokyo, so we went to Japan. That was amazing. My other son wanted to surf because he's a surfer. That's why we live in Cornwall. We went to Malibu. That was mad. I wanted to go to Masdar City. Now, again, I'd love to have more time to tell you the story, but I'd been there before, almost been there before. I'd been in Abu Dhabi in the deserts doing some crazy sand buggy race. The gadget show was bonkers. It was a bit like Top Gear, but gadgets. We did these big races. It was loads of fun, never too serious. And on that day, my co-host, Pollyanna, went to Masdar City, and I thought I'd won because I'd got the great, shooting through the sand dunes gig. Her and the crew came back, and they were absolutely buzzing about this incredible vision of the future of this city. It's the world's first carbon-neutral city. I say city. They say city. They're good at their PR. It's more like a small university campus in the desert. Okay? And carbon neutral, they desalinate their own water. They produce all their own energy with this incredible solar technology they've got. But they use the past. I mean, look at that. How does that look like a medieval? It's medieval architecture. It's terracotta. Terracotta, great, as the Romans found out, at keeping cold things cold and hot things hot. And those are terracotta balconies that passively cool the buildings that give onto them. My son there, Harrison, look, chilling out. There's the greenery I told you about. Look out for those in Milton Keynes. Look out for the greenery in the city centres of the future, where Mater and Lightning McQueen have left you to get on with your shopping, and where there's experiential things going on, like theatre and other stuff that the high street needs in order to differentiate itself from Amazon. Okay? And this is another nod to the past. Really interesting. I did an event and I thought this was medieval technology, and there was a history expert, an archaeologist in the room. She said the Romans also used this technology. It's called a wind tower, and certainly in hot countries, it's just a tower, passive tower with fins, and as the heat comes across the, in this case the desert, hits the fins, comes down, and it starts to cool. And when it gets to the bottom, it comes out as outdoor ground level aircon. But I love this, you'll love this, right? What they've done is they've just added a little twist of technology to it. They've Teflon coated the interior of that tower, and they add water vapor to it. I'm not joking, we're in a desert that can get up to 38 degrees, right? It wasn't that day, it was about 27, a balmy 27. Where my daughter is stood there, it's like when you open the fridge. It's that cold. Really amazing, amazing technology. And again, a great example of the past. And here we are in the present, look, absolutely nuts. I mean, there can't be a better example of how popular culture is a really important way of predicting where we're going. other than the Mr. Fusion on the back of the DeLorean. And here we stand in 2024, and that's an actual tokamak. It's a real fusion reactor. And it gets even more surreal. They're even building one just south of Grimsby. What's going on? What's going on? How are we doing for time? Does anyone know? How are we doing for time? 3 o'clock. And what time do you want? Because I want to just guide. Huh? 1:15. All right, good. So, entertainment. Yeah, I don't think any of us could have predicted how critical content, information, news, entertainment was going to be to our lives, because we couldn't have done, because we didn't have access to it. I mean, I had to record Top of the Pops on a VHS recorder. And if I watched the, Shalimar, or who else? Howard Jones, or, Michael Jackson, or Shakin' Stevens. If I watched the Green Door performance of Shakin' Stevens too many times on the tape, it would ruin the quality of it, wouldn't it? Who would have thought now that we're in a world where we've got always on continuous content across multiple platforms? So if I was watching something on the train today and I then got onto the bus afterwards, I could on my laptop, I could keep the laptop in the bag and carry on from where I watched it on the phone, and then I could go onto social media and talk about it, maybe even talk to the director or the stars of it or whatever it be. Very, very interesting landscape where we find ourselves. And of course, we're now going to start to move beyond those rather, may I borrow your phone? I'm not going to do anything to it, just want to hold it. Do you know how many transistors that's got on it, by the way, in terms of our exponential growth? Depends on exactly what is it, iPhone 15? It's got over 1 billion transistors on it, by the way, 1 billion. Yeah, anyway. This device, it's an Egyptian tablet. No, not just your phone, all phones. It's a very silly device. And we know that if you're on that thing trying to get here and not be late from Euston, people walking down the street like that, right, like that. Okay, it's not good. It's not good for us. It's not good for the way that we communicate. We communicate by this, like this, don't we? What we want is something like these. That's what we really need. And again, I love that you're accepting. If I'd started with this when I came in, you'd have said, get out. What are you on about, you nutter? It makes more sense, doesn't it? That we have our information on here. I mean, I think that the first generation of augmented or mixed reality glasses, which are just beginning to appear, are probably going to look something like these. I remember when I got these from the optician, I went in and I said, I'll have that pair, please. And he said, I'm sorry, sir, that's the shop window. And so I came a couple of sizes down, just a couple of sizes, and I ended up with these bad boys. And I could, if I wanted to, I reckon I could play a joke and you'd go along with it, that I've got all my script on here and everything, because it could work, couldn't it? We're not that far away. The exponential nature of growth. Remember Moore's law, not just that anything connected to information technology doubles in power every 18 months, it halves in size. That's critically important. Halves in energy consumption. So you can see we're going to be able to get the batteries that we need in here. You're going to get a day's battery out of this within the next 3 years. I know this because Meta they haven't released, but they've released to journalists a device called Orion, and you should check it out. And it's effectively this, but with the functionality of something like the Vision Pro. That's the Vision Pro there. That's me trying Apple's new headset. Has anyone tried the Vision Pro? Has anyone tried it? You can actually give it a go, If you go into the Apple store, you can give it a go. And I really recommend it. One of the most amazing things they do is they show you what sports might be like. And I'm literally courtside, right there, courtside, and you're the basketballer. Are you a basketballer? No. Okay. And you're bouncing the ball, and I'm stood, and it's incredible. I can see not you, the basketballer, the sweat on the pores, and I can see all the moves, and I can feel thank you so much. And I feel like this is good, very good. I can feel that visceral connection to that event, and they're going to do it with concerts and possibly dramas, and that's where we're headed, and it's all because of the exponential nature of growth and concerts like this one. This isn't CGI again. Remember I told you nothing I'm going to tell you in the next 25 minutes is going to be made up. That's real. That's a technology called holotronica, which actually uses a very thin silver gauze between the audience and the stage and 2 very large projectors to make a holographic 3D effect, because silver has a very high refractive index. It's so thin, though, you can't see it. I mean, you literally can't see it, to the extent that Stuart, who's the DJ behind there, and strangely enough, the inventor of that technology that they're now using in Vegas and Beyonce's concerts, one of these big problems is that the artists walk straight through the screen when they're rehearsing. But, so again, an abstract, you know, it's the help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. But it's not a little projector with a bit of smoke. It's a hollow gauze. And previously, it's a headset. Do you see how it's what we were promised, but it arrives in a way that we perhaps didn't expect. So we're going to race through AI just really, really quickly. Because I know you've been doing some workshops. I don't want to contradict anything that you've learned, because I wasn't able to come to the workshops today. But these are what I call the 6 pillars of AI. And they're pretty self-explanatory. Machine learning, that's the sort of code brains behind everything. Natural language processing, ChatGPT, some of the other natural language interfaces that I'm sure you're all using, but not telling anyone about. Computer vision. God, computers are so good. They're so good at seeing stuff. Like this hotel, great big hotel. Imagine that. In fact, no, let's do it in this room. Imagine we were playing Where's Wally? To scale. So Wally's that, like, you know, big as my thumbnail, right? You could paint Where's Wally all over all of these walls and the ceiling, all over here. And it'd take all of us, how long would it take us to find Wally? Just one Wally. I mean, it could be maybe a day. Maybe if we were lucky, if we were really vigilant, and we didn't stop for too many breaks, and water, and like breathing, things like that, things that humans need. What do you think an AI could do? A robotic AI vehicle with multiple camera arrays. Yeah, minutes. It would take minutes. It could even look for Wally in different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum, couldn't it? It could even do that. You see why computers and why AI are so much more efficient at things like driving. Sorry, men in the room. Sorry. Your car is so much better at driving than we will ever be, because it can see in different parts of the spectrum. One of the functions that certain cars currently on the roads are doing now is they're bouncing an infrared signal underneath or a LiDAR signal underneath the car in front, and they're hitting the car in front of that one so that they can start to brake when the second car in front of you starts to brake. Okay, because of the way that they can use different parts of the spectrum in ways that humans aren't able to do. That's part of computer vision. Robotics, those modern cars, automated vehicles, they are robots. What is a robot? According to Asimov, a machine that does the work of a man or a woman, a machine that's capable of movement, has sensors and a brain. Well, that's a washing machine, isn't it? See, robots have been amongst us. The idea of having robots in our daily lives isn't as strange as it seems. Knowledge-based systems, this is why lawyers need to be worried. AI is really good at looking at huge amounts of data, huge amounts of data. The entire works of Shakespeare in a matter of minutes, if it hasn't done already, which of course would take us a year. And predictive analytics and decision systems. The aforementioned car example, the robot goes into the corner, looks for the car in front of the car in front to brake, checks the road condition, the camber, leaves, moisture, content, and makes a decision around the safest route through that corner. Okay, again, that's AI. What about the legal profession? How does that sit in AI? We're going to get to your industry, don't you worry, we're getting there. The legal profession ticks 4 out of 6 boxes. Okay. So if you're a legal researcher, you need to really start thinking about your future. Okay? Disruption, you're still going to have a whole load of skills that you can apply to other kinds of jobs. Not deletion, but concerning, yeah? What sector do you think, let me see if you can guess this one, is going to tick all 6 boxes? We don't know whether it's yours yet. We're going to get to that in a minute, so don't say teaching and education and so on. Which sector can you think of? IT? Yeah, potentially. Well done. Well done. Medical and healthcare, yeah. Incredible. And if you don't believe me, this is the best moment in my presentation. I love this bit. Only for me, it's not for you, it's for me to enjoy it. Here we go. I'm going to ask a question, right? And I want, how many people in the room do you think? 60? 100 people? Don't know if this is going to go that well. I'm going to say, no more than one person is going to put their hand up when I ask this question. Maybe. Possibly no one. But maybe one person. Okay, here we go. Have you been operated on by a robot? Put your hands up. 2 people, 3 people. Okay, put your hands down. I don't want to get you identified. It's a personal thing. I really, really appreciate you putting your hands up. How about that? Minds blown? That's mind-blowing. I just said right now here, hands up if you've been operated on by a robot, and 3 people put their hands up. Isn't that incredible? And this is likely one of the robots that you might have been operated on by. It's called the Da Vinci robot. I'm not going to talk to the people that have been operated on. That's not the point. The purpose is to show you where we are technologically. That's the Da Vinci robot. And I was actually involved in buying one of those. I'm not that rich. Not personally. £1.5 million it costs. No, I was involved in a charity to buy one for a hospital very close to here, Chelsea and Westminster Hospital, for the neonatal department, because the trauma that the large surgeon's hands cause to tiny babies and premature babies is very significant in their recovery. Now, the hands of that robot, each hand, there's 4 of them, and one's a light. There's 3 hands that actually operate. 3. I've already got 1 extra hand, so there's a bonus. The hands are the size of my little fingernail, and they're capable of much greater degrees of motion and much more strength and much softer interactions with human tissue than a human surgeon. But you'll be pleased to know there is a surgeon operating it on the other end, all right? We're not automated there just yet. Those experiments are happening, hopefully not on me and my hernia anytime soon. How do I know that there's a human attached to it? Because I gave it a go. And they said, what could you do? Would you like to bring the Gadget Show to look at this is the charity, and we could do an item about the thing, like Tomorrow's World. They used to do medical items, didn't they? So the Gadget Show came along, and they said that they made the mistake of saying to the Gadget Show, what would you like to do? And so he came up with a game of operation. And I remember this really happened. It'd all been organised for weeks, and we're there, and the game's out there, and we're just about to start, and then the sound man, Ben, says, guys, I said, yeah? Has anyone checked whether the 9-volt battery is going to destroy the robot? You know, when it buzzes, the 9-volt battery. And so these desperate calls to, like, I don't know where, California or Silicon Valley or wherever they make it, and they got through to them, and they all chatted, all the experts, and they came back and they said, no, it'll be fine, it's grounded, we were all right. So we played Operation. And I'm going to tell you this, it literally took me 5 minutes to learn how to do it. You put your hand in these sort of gloves. They're not quite gloves, but they're glove-like. And you went in and we pulled out the bits and pieces. It was absolutely incredible and really intuitive. And so this is the point I'm making. The future of healthcare, okay? That computer vision that can drive the car so well can also look for anomalies in scans at a much finer detail than humans will ever be able to do. It's really good news. And so we now get to you education and training. We're at the end now, because I'm aware of time. Let's have a guess. I haven't ticked it. You're going to tell me. What do you think? How many boxes are you going to tick? All of them. Robotics as well? Yeah. Robotics is normally the difficult one. Why robotics? I don't want to put you on the spot. Could someone suggest how robotics may help? The hologram. Say again? Holograms. Yeah. Okay, so in some context, holograms. Possibly, I would say, the other way is legacy material. There's a whole industry where books, old books, are photographed and their content is ingested, yeah? And that's a robotic system. I'm not going to do the ticks. I just wanted you to be able to have a think about it. I think it's very important to leave you on the notion that we're doing fine. It ain't Terminator yet. It's a very compelling narrative. It's understandable to be concerned about the move towards AI. But this is Professor Malone's work. This is where I got the 6 pillars of AI from. I did a course at MIT. And Professor Malone wrote a really great book called Superminds, which I would really suggest anyone interested in taking it further should read. And he's very, very keen to point out, and does so with lots of interesting research, that the humans, us, we're still going to be a very important part of the loop. I don't know why that slide's in there. I really don't. I know why that slide's in there, though. It's to remind me, and this literally is the last point, to come back to you and say, does anyone have a suggestion in the room as to how I achieved that? And that was taken on the end of a lens, paparazzi style, as I came round, travelling at about 20 miles an hour on my hoverboard with the DeLorean.
It's fixed to the car with a bar, isn't it?
Fixed to the car with a bar.
You're sitting on the hoverboard.
Sitting on the bar.
Yeah. It's like you're holding on to something.
Say again?
Those men who are painted gold or silver in the street and they've got a metal thing.
That's good. It's good. You're a sharp bunch, which is probably best based on what you do for a living. Yes, it was based on those gold men, as you so eloquently put it, kind of Buddhas and things like that. And you'll notice there's a bit of fabric draped beneath them. Yeah, and it's the result of an exponential increase in the efficiency of metal, so we can make metal that's thinner but has a much higher tensile strength. We had to take the seats out of the DeLorean, and I got that idea by looking at those performers in Covent Garden. And I went to the team at KMF and suggested the idea. We took the seats out, whacked in a sort of exoskeleton thing underneath the seats, bolted them back, and it terminates in something, again, I've used my hands as examples a lot today, about as thick as my thumb, and it goes up my arm, round. It's not a pole that I'm sitting on, it's a bicycle seat. Yeah, and it was like doing kind of downward dog for like 25 minutes attached to a car. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I've come to an end. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.